Let's talk about a single problem that is absolutely crippling Iraq, a problem that has siphoned off hundreds of billions of dollars from the country. Today, we're going to break down a really bold proposal to try and fight back.
Okay, let's start with just one number. A number so huge, it's honestly kind of hard to wrap your head around. $350 billion.
Now, that's not Iraq's national budget, and it's not foreign aid. According to the sources we're looking at, that's the estimated amount of public money that's been stolen, just funneled right out of the country since its first democratic government was formed. I mean, this is money that was meant for hospitals, for schools, for roads.
A number like 350 billion, it's almost an abstract concept, right? So let's bring it down to earth. What does the absence of that much money actually feel like for an ordinary person living in Iraq?
Well, think about this for a second. We're talking about a country with some of the largest oil reserves on the entire planet. And yet, Iraq's own Ministry of Planning says that 1 out of every 4 people lives below the poverty line. The wealth is there. It's just not getting to the people who need it.
And here's where you see the dominoes start to fall. That missing money, it creates this huge vacuum. It means you get things like terrible public health care, massive unemployment, and infrastructure that's literally crumbling. But the source argues it's even deeper than that. It actively pours fuel on the fire of political instability and makes the sectarian conflicts that have torn the country apart even worse.
So this begs a really critical question, right? If the problem is so obvious and the consequences are so devastating, why can't Iraq's own legal system do something about it?
And here you see the core of the problem. On paper, Iraq has really strong anti-corruption laws, but in practice, there's just no effective way to actually enforce them. It's kind of like having a brand new, top-of-the-line fire engine, but there's no driver, no keys, and not a drop of water in the tank.
So let's look at Iraq's own Commission of Integrity, the COI. It's supposed to be the country's #1 corruption watchdog, but it's been systematically weakened. It has no power to go after criminals or stolen money outside of Iraq. It gets stuck in red tape just trying to get funding. And here's the kicker. It has no real political backing. Why? Well, because the very politicians who could empower it are terrified it might one day come after them.
And if you want the perfect example of this political paralysis, just look at what happened in 2021. A huge anti-corruption bill specifically designed to fix these exact problems got completely stonewalled. It was dead on arrival, never even made it to a vote in parliament.
Okay, so if the system inside the country is totally gridlocked, what's the alternative? Well, the source we're digging into today suggests that the only viable solution might have to come from outside Iraq's borders.
And that solution is a proposed International Anti-Corruption Court, or IACC. You can think of it as being like the International Criminal Court, but it would focus specifically on kleptocrats, those leaders who get rich by looting their own countries. And it's designed to step in only when a country's own justice system is proven to either unable or just plain unwilling to do the job itself.
Now, this isn't just some fantasy idea from a textbook. There is a real-world campaign spearheaded by an NGO called Integrity Initiatives International that's actively pushing to make this court a reality.
And it is really starting to gain some serious momentum. Countries like Canada, the Netherlands, Nigeria, and Colombia have all publicly supported the idea. So has the European Parliament. There's even a group of experts drafting a potential treaty for it right now.
So finally, let's zoom out a little bit, because the source makes a really compelling case that this kind of deep-rooted corruption isn't just Iraq's problem. It's actually a trigger for major global issues that, believe it or not, affect all of us. And this is exactly why what happens in one country can become everyone's problem. When a state is basically hollowed out from the inside by theft, it just can't function. And that failure becomes a direct trigger for the kind of extreme poverty that leads to mass migration, the kind of state failure that allows violent extremist groups to grow, and even the inability to tackle huge threats like climate change. When you get right down to it, the whole argument really boils down to this one powerful idea, that when a government's corruption becomes so bad that it literally puts the future of its own people at risk, the global community doesn't just have an option to act, it has a responsibility. And that leaves us with one final, really provocative question. A question that gets to the very heart of international justice and national sovereignty in our modern world. When a nation proves it's unable or unwilling to police itself, who should?